Hello everyone, and welcome to this cybersecurity analyst course series. Today we'll be looking at the Linux shell, and we'll be understanding what the shell is, why do we use the shell, the different types of shells in Linux, and basically understanding how it works. Let us start off the class now with what is Linux shell. In the last class, we were able to look at the Linux kernel and knowing what the kernel is and why the kernel is so important. Today we'll be talking about, and if you don't understand the kernel, you can go back to the video and watch it. You'll be able to have a better understanding of what the kernel is and why the kernel is so important. Now let's look at the Linux shell in this way. Whenever you log into a system or you open the console window, the kernel will run a shell instance. Remember, the kernel is the heart of the operating system. That's responsible for controlling and executing processes. It's responsible for management, resource allocation, and then maintaining processes. Basically, the shell now is a program that acts as an interface between the user and the kernel. The kernel is the core of the operating system. The kernel is very, very important. The shell is more like what I call the command line interpreter. When you want to communicate with the operating system Linux, understand the fact that Linux doesn't speak English. You will write in English, write the text to the Linux shell. The shell will be able to convert that into binary for the system to understand. Then convert the binary back into understandable English for it to understand. So the point is that communication that happens between the shell, between the kernel and you, is processed by the shell. The shell is the command line interpreter and acts as an interface between the user and the kernel. And through the shell, you can be able to execute programs and utilities on the kernel. So the shell is a program that is used to execute other programs on the system. Why do you need the shell? Well, it's important to interact with the kernel, and the shell makes it possible to be able to interact with the kernel. Remember, the kernel is the core of the operating system, so you can't interact with Linux without the shell. The shell enables that interaction, writing commands and getting output. So a user cannot access the machine utilities unless it uses the shell. So let's talk about the different types of shells in Linux. So when you understand the kernel and what the shell is, then you understand why the shell is so important in Linux operating systems. Let's talk about the popular shells that we have. We have what they call the born again shell, or what we call bash. So it is born again, like normal born again, yes. But this born again is BOURNA. It's not like born again in Christ. So we have the born again shell. That's the most popular shell, which is shortened as a bash shell. So the GNU born again shell was designed to be compatible with the born shell. It's the most popular used today, and because it allows automatic recall, previously used commands, and edit them with type of arrow keys and all of that. So the born again shell is the most popular. Bash shell is used by Ubuntu systems and is used by Ubuntu, Linux. So bash shell is heavily used. And one key thing about the bash shell is the $sign. A $sign is used. So when you interact with shell, you see this $sign. It starts with a $sign. So the bash shell is heavily used, and most operating systems, even virtual machines you find, are going to use Ubuntu. So you'll be familiar with the bash shell. Another shell is the Bourne shell, or SH. This was developed by AT&T, Bells. AT&T, you probably have heard about them. And it's the first Unix shell ever. So when you talk about Unix, have you heard about Unix before? Unix is it's just a term to describe a system that can run multiple files at the same time. That's more of a Unix system. So that is why the OS is important. Remember when we were discussing the OS, you can still go back to your notes or the video. You understand that the OS is what makes it possible for us to run multiple operations on on a laptop or a desktop. So with the OS, you can be able to run multiple operations. You can be able to use the calculator at the same time, use WhatsApp, use all of these utilities at the same time. So the Bourne shell gained popularity due to compact nature and high speed of operation. Is what made it default shell for Solaris OS. So the default shell for Solaris OS is the Bourne shell. It's also used as a default shell for Solaris systems. And so one of the drawbacks of the Bourne shell is it doesn't have inbuilt functionality to handle logical and arithmetic operations. And also, unlike different types of shell in Linux, the Bourne shell cannot do recall previously used commands. So it lacks comprehensive features to operate at the proper interactive use. Okay. But the good part is the Bourne shell also uses the $sign. Then we have the C shell or shish. The C shell was created in the University of California by Bill Joy. It was denoted as shish. And it's useful for programming features, built-in support for arithmetic operations, and a syntax similar to C programming language. So the C shell is also being used and is also popular. Number 4, we look at the Korn shell, KSH. The Korn shell also developed by AT&T Bell Labs and by David Korn. It was used to improve the Bourne shell. It is denoted as Kish. So besides supporting everything that will be supported by Bourne shell, this one provides users with new functionalities that allows built-in support for arithmetic operations, and the Korn shell script made for the Bourne shell while offering string and array function manipulation similar to C programming language. So one good thing about it is that it's faster than most different types of shells in Linux, including the C shell. So by default, you use the hash key for the root user, hash, and $sign for non-root users. Then number 5, the last one we'll talk about is the Z shell or the Zish. The Zish shell is a shell extension with tons of improvement for customization. So if you want a modern shell that has all of the features and much more, we're talking about the Zish shell. So in summary, we have the Bourne shell, we have the Bourne again shell, bash. The first one is shish, bash. We have C shell, sish. We have Korn shell, kish. We have Z shell, zish. So I'm not too good in pronunciation. So just trying to understand basically what I'm explaining. So this is the much we take, and I believe you'll be able to understand basically about Linux, bash shell, and understand what shells are in the course space. So thank you for joining this class. Join me again for another class. Thank you.